Is Dabo Swinney really against the transfer portal? How does he truly feel about it? Why is he so particular about the players that he wants? I'll tell you next on the Locked On Clemson Podcast.
You are Locked On Clemson, your daily podcast on the Clemson Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Clemson family? Welcome back to the Locked On Clemson Podcast, your daily podcast covering your Clemson Tigers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am your boy, Damian Parson, always on the ones and twos. You can find and follow me on Twitter at DP_NFL. I am a national scout over with the Draft Network, the founder of the Scouting Room, and of course, you already know, part of the co-host team of the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. And guys, happy Thursday. Thank y'all for joining me and making Locked On Clemson your first listen today and every day. All right. Thank y'all for being my everydayers. We have a good show. We're going to get into Dabo Swinney versus the transfer portal. Is it really a battle? Is it just a narrative that's been painted by the media and fans? What's the truth about it? Dabo and it looks like Cade Klubnik has been compared and comped to former Clemson great QB Tahj Boyd. So we're going to get a little bit into that. And how good is offensive tackle Colin Sadler? I'm going to tell you all about all of that coming up next. But before that, let's give a quick shout out, guys, because today's episode of Locked On Clemson is brought to you by Jase Medical. Empower yourself when you purchase a Jase case, providing you with a personal supply of 5 antibiotics that treat 50+ infections. Get yours today at jasemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com. Dabo Swinney, the narrative that's been brewing for quite some time is Dabo Swinney hates the transfer portal. That Dabo Swinney doesn't want to go after any players in the transfer portal. That he's stubborn, all that good stuff, right? And someone called into Dabo's weekly radio show. I think it was Monday night. Caller, just kind of praising the coach, right? Praising Coach Swinney and saying, "Oh man, I know you get a lot of criticism," the caller said, "but about old Dabo stubborn. He doesn't want to go to the portal. He's not stubborn. He's principled, and thank God for that." Okay. I don't share those sentiments. I think that's kind of a weird stance to have. But Dabo went on a long, shout out to Clemson, 24/7 Sports Clemson edition. They talked about how he went on this long-winded monologue, and he said that people talk about, kind of just saying, people talk about about this portal all the time. Do I prefer the portal? No, but am I opposed to it? No, absolutely not. Okay, and then he says, this is his quote, and there is not ever a spot that comes open on our roster over the past year or so where we have not said, do we take a portal guy? Swinney said. To this point, outside of a couple occasions, there have been 2 or 3 great ones that we thought would help us, but guess what? They got to love you too. Just because you want them don't mean they want you. And then other guys that we have evaluated, and then other guys that we have evaluated, but we like the guys that we currently have. We have conviction. You're never going to make everyone happy. There's always going to be criticism, especially when you have success, which is good because people care. That is fine. We're not sitting here today. We're not sitting here today. I would have been gone a long time ago if I ran this program the way everyone else wanted me to run it. And I agree with that to an extent. If you didn't do what you felt was the way of building this program, you probably wouldn't be here today, right? Because what you did, it worked. Trevor Lawrence, Deshaun Watson, Tahj Boyd, everything you did for the most part has worked. Now, is there some validity to you not going in the portal? Yes, there's validity to that. Okay, when you think about a Keon Coleman, and I love I love how he worded that the players have to love you too, and I think that's one part that people have to reel in, right? Reel in those emotions. Bring them in, guys, because, yes, Dabo could have maybe, like I said, I bring Keon Coleman up because he went to a rival, a team that we have to see next week. So Keon Coleman, Jaheim Bell, right? All those guys, they into the transfer portal, left their respective schools to go to Florida State. Now we got to deal with that problem. right? We have to deal with that. We have to. There's no other way around it. We have to deal with it. So, okay, cool. We deal with it. But is this to say that Dabo wasn't interested in Keon Coleman? I don't think that's the case. I'm pretty sure he was interested in the big 6'4", 215-pound athletic specimen and beast receiver that is Keon Coleman. I'm pretty sure that this man wanted this young man on his team. But like he said, the players have to love him too. Now, what I will say is this. Dabo has been against, like he has been against the portal in the sense of, like he said, do I prefer it, right? He wants to do the homegrown thing, and I totally get that. But why would a player want to enter the portal and come to Clemson? What incentive is there, right? Dabo, if I remember correctly, had an issue with NIL before NIL became a full-fledged thing, right? If I remember correctly, didn't he even threaten to quit? Because if NIL became prominent that he would leave college football or something like that. Maybe I'm mistaken. I don't know, guys. Maybe I'm mistaken. I just remember seeing reports of that back when it was supposedly said. So if that's the case, right? Why would a player say, I want to enter the portal and go to Clemson where NIL isn't the biggest factor for them and they don't care as much about the portal anyway? He prefers his homegrown guys. And there's something else that he talked about was just culture fits. And that's a big part too, guys. Like, and to his defense, yeah, you can't sell your soul and say, let's go get this guy who has a trouble pass, and because he's great at football, let's go make it happen. No, Dabo's he's not rocking like that. And I wouldn't rock like that either. I'm not going to tarnish my legacy by going and getting someone that has a checkered pass, like a really true checker pass. I'm not talking about the media fluffed up checker pass. I'm talking about you go and look at his background check, that, you submit a background check and his background is loaded with problems. No, you know what I'm saying? Absolutely not. Okay. Eric Gilbert at Nebraska just got arrested for armed robbery or B&E, breaking and entering or whatever he was, right? This young man is going through things mentally. But he's got a checkered past, right? I wouldn't say Dabo go get this young man. Yes, he's talented. One of the best players, one of the most talented players in the country. But you have to be able to fit the culture and not be in trouble. So I get Dabo with that. So when it looks at Dabo versus the transfer portal, I understand both sides of the argument. I understand where Dabo's coming from. Culture matters. The players have to want to come here. But I also understand the naysayers that say, Dabo, you don't even like the portal. Dabo, your stance on NIL hurts you in the portal. Dabo, and then Dabo goes back. I get both sides. So when I look at the situation, I would like to say, I would like to see him attack the portal a little bit more, right? And I can say he says that we did. There was a couple guys we wanted, but they didn't want to come here. So then you got to kind of figure out, all right, I want you guys to remember, think about this. Les Miles, right? LSU. They were prominent with him, a dominant team, all that stuff, right? Why did Les Miles get fired for Ed Orgeron at LSU? One of the biggest reasons was because he didn't adapt to the times. So instead of trying to run, 48 strong toss, 42 power pitch, instead of running these old school 1970 run plays in a passing game, flip that. Instead of running the passing concepts in the passing game, he ran those old school run concepts. That hurt him, and his teams weren't able to be successful because he was holding them back. Now, I'm not saying that Dabo's holding Clemson back. What I'm saying is this. You don't want to get into that situation where you're now Les Miles in this thing where you just don't adapt, Dabo. You got to adapt. And if that means finding ways to get more NIL opportunities and finding ways to convince guys to come through the portal, that matters, man. That matters. Okay, it does. Because at the end of the day, the portal is free agency. And the highest bidder wins. The best situation wins. So you got to give these young men some reason to come. Give them incentive to come to Death Valley, right? Give them incentive and go from there, man. Jahmyr Gibbs, one of the best players in all of college football, went from Georgia Tech, where people didn't know how good he was, and went to Alabama. What? Through the transfer portal. Why? Because Nick Saban says, I will absolutely use the transfer portal, right? So that's what I'm saying. Quinn Ewers dominated Alabama last weekend for the University of Texas. Where was he at before? Ohio State. Joe Burrow, LSU, he was at Ohio State. The transfer portal matters. It's just all about how you work it and everything else. But I do, like I said, I agree with both sides. You guys let me know in the comments how you feel about the transfer portal, and should Clemson be more aggressive? Should they kind of lessen their strict rules when it comes down to culture fit? I don't think you still want people to fit the culture, but if you're trying to find choir boys, I don't know. That's all I'm saying. I don't know. I don't think that's the right mentality to have. But guys, you want to talk about mentalities? Cade Klubnik, Tahj Boyd, is that the comp we're going with now? We're going to talk about that and how I feel about it coming up next on the Locked On Clemson Podcast. With storms, shortages, pandemics, reliance on China, and other supply chain issues, we need to be prepared now more than ever. Guys, everyone should feel and be empowered to care for themselves and their loved ones during times of unexpected uncertainty. That's why Jase Medical offers the Jase case. The Jase case provides 5 life-saving antibiotics for emergency use and gives you a peace of mind so that you are not just hoping that you have access to the best medication in a time of need and emergency. Jase Medical makes sure you have the medication in hand. Jase Medical is simple. They handle everything from online evaluation to licensed pharmacy, medication, delivery, and ongoing consultation and care. Don't get caught unprepared. All right. So save more than $360 by getting these life-saving antibiotics with Jase Medical, plus an additional $20 off by using the promo code Locked On at checkout on jasemedical.com. QB1, Cade Klubnik, improved from week 1 to week 2. And the head ball coach, he saw it too. He saw it as well, and he did a thing. He's done some. He's throwing out some comps this offseason and everything, and he comped QB1 Cade Klubnik to former Clemson great Tahj Boyd, and just kind of talking about the improvements that he saw from week 1 to week 2, and in that dominating second half versus Charleston Southern. And one of his quotes was, he just talked about, man, again, just settle down. We did a lot of good stuff, but we just put ourselves in the hole. He said that the halftime message, that was his halftime message. And then, we had, then they had really like 3 really bad plays, and they were all 3 plays on the quarterback. And he said he's just got to kind of hang in there with them. And he just talks about kind of being patient, right? He said, kind of reminds me of Tahj Boyd in 2011. Those first couple games where I thought Chad Morris was going to eat his headset. And sometimes you just got to play your way through it a little bit. And fortunately today, we were able to do that, right? And he just continues to talk about with Cade. He said, all right. All right. Well, first of all, he says, it was a great day to be back in the Valley, always fun and all that good stuff. He said, living here, you drive by it all year long, and it's just really cool. He just kind of, some fluff, right? A little fluff. And he just kind of went into, just being thankful to have his 100th game in Death Valley. And just, again, talking about Cade and Cade settling down and being patient with Cade. He said, obviously, the 2 critical errors by Cade kind of got us off to a bad start there in the first quarter, put us in a hole. But it's not an easy position to play. Talking about quarterback. And you find out a lot about people when you hit a little adversity. And as I always say, it either shines you up or grinds you up. I like that. He said, it all depends on what you're made of. And this kid's made of all the right things. And I saw him respond in a big way. And you got a chance to see what he can do. He made some big plays with his legs. He threw for over 300 yards, 4 touchdowns, and just settled in. And that's what we needed. We just needed to get that kind of settle in a bit and allow him to calm down and watch him. And he said, I'm just really proud to watch him bounce back. And it makes me, and I said this, right? I think I said this on the live stream. Just be patient with Cade. Be patient with Cade. I would say give Cade the same patience that we gave DJU. Now, there are a lot of you that were on DJU's neck, and it was not right to be on his neck because it wasn't just him, and he wasn't even the biggest part of the problem. But the same thing with Cade, man. I like that Dabo talked about that and used that Tahj Boyd comp. Because 2011, I could pull that up for you now, real quick. Tahj Boyd, he did struggle a little bit, in 2011 and everything, and or just that season. So it's like, okay, 2011, what did the season and that game log, right? And for that season, 2011, he threw for 3,800 yards, 33 touchdowns. He threw 12 interceptions. He played 14 games that year, right? He played 14 games. Now let's look at the game log. Let's see what the game log looks like. Okay, let's see what the game log looks like to start that season out. And he was solid, right? He was solid, but it still took a little bit statistically, right? 264 first game, 3 touchdowns and an interception, 261. That's when he started to pick it up. In week 3, week 4, but even then he kind of hit like a little spatter, a little rough patch weeks 5 and 6. So it was like that year was just kind of up and down for Tahj, right? Like even week 12, right, against South Carolina, he was 11-29, completing less than 38% of his passes. He threw 83 yards, a touchdown, and interception. Against Wake Forest that year, he threw for 343, but he threw two picks in that game, right? He lost to Georgia Tech as well. With he threw for less than 58% completion, less than 300 yards, and 2 interceptions that season. Right? He finished that like not even just a start. His start was solid. It was the end part where it was like in that end towards the middle and the end of that season, he struggled. So that's when he's talking about that 2011 year wasn't the best for Tahj, right? But you saw Tahj bounce back after that, and it's like, okay, just be patient. I don't want anybody to say Cade Klubnik's not the guy, right? Because the very next year, 36 touchdowns, 13 interceptions. He completed 67 67% of his passes off my Tahj. Because in 2011, he completed less than 60% of his passes. His yards per attempt went up. All of those things. So just give Cade time. Give him time. Be patient with him, guys. And I think if we do that, we're going to be happy. I think everybody's going to be happy with the development of Cade. And like I said, it's just got to allow it to play out. I think he's going to have a strong season. I do believe he's going to have a strong season. And I think if we exercise some patience, allow him to develop, allow him to get settled early. That's what I'm waiting on, guys. I'm telling you, that's what I'm waiting on. I'm waiting to see Cade Klubnik get settled early in games. Because if he gets settled early in games, man, we could be in we could see a powerhouse type of situation where he's out there slinging it and running the ball, and he's just in a zone. We have yet to see him get into a zone so far this year where it's just like he got into a zone. I think he completed 10 or 13 somewhere in there straight completions in that third quarter versus Charleston Southern or something like that. He had a nice little run, and he was into a zone there. But I don't want to say, okay, yeah, these dump offs and stuff like that, like just everything. I want to see him get into a zone. And I think when we see that, man, we can really see the fruits of the labor. But, one of the big things for him is protection, and helping in the offensive line has to keep him protected so he can't get in said zone. And I do like the Tahj Boyd comp that Coach Swinney threw out there, because Tahj Boyd's first year as a starter, 2011, was kind of up and down, topsy-turvy, right? What I'm hoping for is that the rough patch, the up and down, is at the beginning of this season, right? The first 2 weeks. And then it's more so smooth sailing and smooth sailing for Cade Klubnik, rather than having all the ups and downs throughout the season with turnovers and everything like that. But like I said, if you want him to take that jump, you want him to get better, you got to protect him. And I'm going to talk about one of our young offensive linemen, Colin Sadler. How good is he? And should he be thrust into the lineup? I'm going to tell you next on the Locked On Clemson podcast. Guys, trying to buy tickets for your favorite events should not be stressful, but it can be, especially if you wait to the last minute. Typically because at the last minute, you're trying to hunt down the best price, competing with other buyers, and trying to avoid being scammed and dealing with scalpers. But let me tell you about Gametime. It is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all your sports, music, comedy, and theater needs near you. Guys, they have flash deals and last-minute tickets. Their tickets are easy to find and buy for every kind of event in your area. You're going to love the seat views, the images of the seat views, so you know, okay, if I'm going to sit here, what does my view look like? I love that part of it, okay? And not only that, guys, but right now, Clemson fans, Saturday night, your Clemson Tigers host the Florida Atlantic Owls. You want to go to that game? You can go. for $27. Just download the Gametime app right now. Gametime app has that at this particular moment. So snag the tickets without the stress with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. How good is young offensive tackle Colin Sadler, 6'6", 325 pounds? Well, he's only allowed in 2 games, right? In 57 total blocking snaps. He's only allowed, 1 pressure, 1 hurry, right? And he's played, 54 of his 57 snaps played at left tackle. But this most recent game against Charleston Southern, he did play 3 snaps at right tackle. So he's got 54 snaps at left tackle, and then 3 snaps at the right side. So how good is he for a 6'6", 325-pound guy? One of the biggest thing that you notice, and I think, when I look at, because Blake Miller's 6'6", Tristan Lay is 6'6", Colin Sadler and Tristan Lay are kind of built similar, kind of boxy, strong, physical frames. And one thing I like when I watch Colin Sadler, just in those limited reps, is just his hands, man. He's got a strong upper body. He gets his feet settled, right? He can anchor and stop momentum. And I think he's athletic as well. And I don't even think he is athletic. I think his footwork and quickness and his kick slide and everything and his jump sets and quick sets is really good. I think this young man has, more than functional arm length and wingspan. I've said this, and I'm going to say this again. He should possibly be looked at more in this game at right tackle. Because if he can play better than Blake Miller and give more protection, put him in there with Cade. I think Tristan Lay and Colin Sadler should be your starting tackles, left and right tackle. No disrespect to Blake Miller, but man, I just don't like the movement skills. I don't like the redirection. All right. I don't like the fact that he bends so much at the waist and not at the knees. I have concerns next week with Florida State coming in. But with Colin Sadler, this kid can play, man. He's good. He's physically gifted. He's strong. He's athletic. He plays with good pacing and tempo and temperament in the run game as well. Now, you look at the PFF grades. Again, I'm not one that takes their grades too serious, right? Because I don't really go with their grades. I look at more of the normal numbers and stuff, right? So week 1, he 25 total blocking snaps, and his offensive blocking grade was a 48.7. He had a 45 run blocking grade and a 58 pass blocking grade. Then in week 2, in his 32 blocking snaps played, he had an offensive grade of an 89, 87, almost 88 run blocking grade, and an 83 pass blocking grade. No pressures, no sacks, no QB hits, no hurries allowed in week 2. So the grade went up, all right? But at the same time, like I said, for me, and not only did the grade go up, like his snaps went up, right, in this game as well. So, and the crazy thing about it is, like, I noticed that in the Duke game, he came in for Tristan Lay, in the middle of the game. And he came in, for Tristan Lay again in the middle of the game, versus Charleston Southern, especially, once they pulled the starters. But I do think that he's good enough to start at right tackle and be an impact player for your Clemson Tigers. I truly believe that, guys. I truly, truly, truly believe that he could be an impact player for your Clemson Tigers. Man, you want a guy that can come in, step in, and make the necessary plays that's going to help your team get to the promised land. And I think being able to protect and having 2 bookend young tackles that are physical, gifted athletes, good functional, more than functional arm length, can really move people in the run game. They can pull and get out in front of the running backs, on those GT counters, right? Or those pitch plays or outside runs, right? Be effective, space blockers in the screen game as well. And at the end of the day, if they can set the outside, protect the inside, redirect and run guys around the arc. If you try to cross face, they can get their hands on you and stop you dead to rights and keep Cade protected, where Marcus Tate, Will Putnam. That's why it's so important for me, and I keep harping on this. The tackles, man. The tackles are so important, guys, because of the fact when you have 2 bookend tackles, that I keep saying this, tackles and cornerbacks are the only 2 positions that they tell you be on the island and win against a better athlete than you that's attacking you while you're retreating. And if you have two tackles that can do that you could put on an island, you don't have to block, keep a tight end in the block. You don't have to tell a running back to chip all the time. You can go one-on-one with your two tackles. Your three interior offensive linemen can handle two other rushers. If they want to send a blitzer, you know what I'm saying, you can duo and climb. You can double team a guy if a free runner tries to come late, or a delayed rusher, delayed blitz. Now that other offensive lineman, once he knows, hey, you got him, and now you jump off and grab that linebacker that's trying to delay blitz. Those three interior offensive linemen can help each other, work as bumpers. Like I said, double team, all those type of things, man, and keep the pocket. You want to turn that pocket into almost like a N, right? Where it's like it's just oval and it comes down like this here, right? So or like a U, just upside down, an N. So you make the pocket like that where it's just curved, and now he can step up, he can slide, he can move wherever he wants to move. Talking about Cade Klubnik. And that's the thing. So I think Colin Sadler, man, how good is he? I think he's really good. I think he's really talented. He's young. He hasn't started. So yes, like I'm not saying, hey man, no, I am saying it. You might want to start him against Florida State and instead of Blake Miller, man. I just think that's just a tough ask, and I don't think Blake Miller is physically capable of dealing with the type of rushers that they have. If he proves me wrong, I'll walk onto this show and I'll say kudos and tip my cap to Blake. But that's just how I truly feel from watching the tape and watching his physical limitations. So how good is Colin Sadler? I think he's really good. He's really young. He's really talented. He's physical, athletic, gifted, all those things. I want to see him play more. I want to see 60 snaps from him this week. I would love to see 60 snaps. And then you make that decision. Do you start him or Blake Miller? You look at the film and say, okay, against Florida Atlantic's D-line, who played better? Against Duke's D-line, who played better? Against Charleston Southern's defensive line, who played better? And if the answer to all three of those is Colin Sadler, then you start Colin Sadler heading into the Florida State week and allow him to get those reps in practice. That's all I'm saying, guys. But hey, how good is Colin Sadler? I think he's really good. We just have to see him with the full workload. But guys, that's our show. Like I said, talk about how good, offensive tackle, sophomore, young offensive tackle Colin Sadler is. Cade Klubnik being comped to Tahj Boyd, and why I agree with it. I think it's a really good comp in terms of the context that Coach Swinney put it into. And Dabo Swinney versus the transfer portal, it's a tale as old as time at this point. I understand both sides, and I think there's a common ground that can be met. There's got to be some shifting on coach's personal beliefs or personal his vindication. But other than that, I totally understand, and I rock with and agree with how he feels for the most part. But guys, that's our show. Thank y'all for making Locked On Clemson your first listen today and every day. Thank y'all for being my everydayers. Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube. Wherever you listen to podcasts, get the latest episode as soon as it is available. I might just break down Colin Sadler on the Patreon account, guys. So you want to go watch me break down just his 32 snaps. I think he had 32 snaps. So, watch me break down that. I might try to bring that to you guys by Friday evening, before the game on Saturday night. But guys, like as always, man, you know what you can do is find and follow me on Twitter at DP_NFL. Guys, let's get this channel up to 1,000 subscribers, man. Go hit the bell notification so you're notified anytime I drop content on the channel. All right. So on tomorrow's show, we're going to get into the final preview of this game and the 3 keys to victory. We're going to talk about that and the X factors. So as always, guys, come and join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Go Tigers.